Vivian Cross stood at the altar in her grandmother's vintage lace wedding gown, her heart pounding with anticipation as she waited for Trevor to appear. The St. Augustine Cathedral was packed with their friends and family. The afternoon sun casting rainbow patterns through the stained glass windows across the white marble floor. White roses and baby's breath decorated every pew, and the gentle melody of the string quartet filled the sacred space with romantic music. But something was wrong. Trevor should have been here by now. Rebecca, her maid of honor and best friend since college, approached with worry etched across her face. She held her phone with trembling fingers, having just finished what appeared to be a difficult conversation. "Viv, I need to tell you something," Rebecca whispered, her voice barely audible above the murmur of concerned guests. "Trevor isn't coming." The words hit Vivian like a physical blow. The bouquet of white roses slipped from her numb fingers, scattering petals across the altar steps. "What do you mean he isn't coming? Where is he?" Rebecca's eyes filled with tears as she showed Vivian the text message on her phone. "He sent this to his best man 20 minutes ago. He said he can't go through with it. He's at the airport, flying to Chicago for some business deal that suddenly became urgent." The church began to spin around Vivian as the devastating reality sank in. Trevor had abandoned her at the altar on their wedding day. 200 guests watched as her carefully planned future crumbled before her eyes. The man she had loved for 3 years, who had proposed on a moonlit beach and promised her forever, had chosen his career over their marriage without even having the courage to tell her face to face. "I need to sit down," Vivian whispered, her legs threatening to give way beneath the weight of her elaborate gown. Before Rebecca could help her, a commotion at the back of the church drew everyone's attention. The massive wooden doors opened, and a man strode down the aisle with confident, purposeful steps. He was tall and commanding, wearing an impeccably tailored charcoal suit that emphasized his broad shoulders and athletic build. His dark hair was perfectly styled, and his piercing blue eyes seemed to take in every detail of the scene before him. Vivian recognized him immediately. Nathan Brooks, the billionaire tech mogul who had made headlines for his innovative software company and his reputation as one of the city's most eligible bachelors. She had met him briefly at a charity gala where Trevor had been trying to secure an investment deal. Nathan had been polite but distant, and she remembered thinking he seemed too serious and intense for casual conversation. What was he doing here? Nathan stopped directly in front of the altar, his gaze fixed on Vivian's tear-stained face. The church fell completely silent, as if everyone was holding their breath, waiting to see what would happen next. "Miss Cross," he said, his deep voice carrying easily through the cathedral. "I understand you've found yourself in an unfortunate situation." Vivian could only nod, too shocked by his sudden appearance to form words. She was acutely aware of the hundreds of eyes watching this bizarre scene unfold, of her makeup surely ruining from crying, of how foolish she must look standing alone in her wedding dress. Nathan stepped closer, close enough that she could smell his expensive cologne and see the flecks of silver in his blue eyes. "I have a proposition for you." "A proposition?" she managed to whisper. "Marry me instead." The words echoed through the cathedral like a thunderclap. Gasps and murmurs erupted from the assembled guests, but Nathan's eyes never left Vivian's face. His expression was serious, almost businesslike, as if he were proposing a merger rather than a marriage. "You're insane," Vivian breathed, certain she had misunderstood. "I'm completely serious," Nathan replied calmly. "You have a church full of guests, a reception planned, and a honeymoon booked. I have a need for a wife to help solidify some business arrangements, and frankly, I've always admired your intelligence and grace from our brief encounters." Vivian stared at him in disbelief. This couldn't be happening. In the span of 30 minutes, she had gone from being abandoned by her fiancé to receiving a marriage proposal from a virtual stranger. "Why would you do this?" she asked, her voice stronger now as curiosity began to override her shock. Nathan's expression softened slightly, revealing something warmer beneath his controlled exterior. "Because no woman as remarkable as you deserves to be humiliated this way, and because I believe we could help each other." The cathedral remained silent, except for the distant sound of city traffic and the nervous rustling of guests in there. seats. Vivian looked at Nathan's outstretched hand, knowing that accepting it would change everything about the life she had planned. But what choice did she have? Face the humiliation of sending everyone home and starting over with nothing, or take a leap of faith with a man who had just offered her a way out of the worst day of her life? Yes, she whispered, placing her trembling hand in his strong, warm grasp. The wedding ceremony proceeded with surreal efficiency. Nathan had somehow produced a marriage license and rings, leading Vivian to suspect this hadn't been quite as spontaneous as it appeared. They exchanged vows using the traditional words, though hearing Nathan's deep voice promise to love and honor her sent unexpected shivers down her spine. When the minister pronounced them husband and wife, Nathan's kiss was gentle but brief, clearly performed for the benefit of their stunned audience. The reception at the Grand Ballroom downtown was a masterclass in grace under pressure. Nathan seamlessly stepped into the role of groom, charming Vivian's family and deflecting awkward questions with diplomatic skill. He explained to curious guests that he and Vivian had been secretly seeing each other, and when Trevor proved unworthy, he had seized the opportunity to claim the woman he truly loved. Vivian was amazed by how smoothly he lied, how convincingly he played the part of a man in love. During their first dance to At Last by Etta James, she found herself studying his handsome face, trying to understand what motivated him. "You're quite the actor," she murmured as he spun her gracefully around the dance floor. "Who says I'm acting?" Nathan replied, his blue eyes holding hers with an intensity that made her breath catch. After the reception, Nathan's driver took them to his penthouse in the city's most exclusive district. The space was breathtaking floor-to-ceiling windows, overlooking the glittering skyline, modern art on the walls, and furnishings that whispered of wealth and sophisticated taste. "The guest suite is prepared for you," Nathan said, setting down her overnight bag. "I want you to be comfortable while we figure out our arrangement." "Our arrangement," Vivian repeated. "You make it sound like a business contract." Nathan loosened his tie, and for the first time that day, she saw him look less than perfectly controlled. "In many ways, it is. I need a wife for social and business reasons. My company is going public next month, and the board prefers married executives. You needed rescuing from an impossible situation, so this is temporary?" The thought brought an unexpected pang of disappointment. "That depends on you," Nathan said quietly. "I'm proposing we give this 6 months. If at the end of that time, you want an annulment, I'll provide you with enough money to start fresh anywhere you choose. If you decide to stay, we'll renegotiate terms." Vivian sank onto his leather sofa, suddenly exhausted by the day's emotional upheaval. "This is insane. I don't even know you." "Then let's change that." Nathan sat across from her, his manner shifting from businesslike to genuinely interested. "Tell me about yourself." Vivian Cross Brooks. The sound of her new name on his lips sent another unexpected flutter through her chest. "What do you want to know?" "Everything. What makes you laugh? What are your dreams? What did Trevor never bother to learn about you?" The last question hit surprisingly close to home. Trevor had always been more interested in talking about his deals and ambitions than listening to her thoughts about art or her students at the community college where she taught painting. "I wanted to open my own gallery someday," she found herself saying. "Feature local artists who can't get representation elsewhere." Trevor always said it wasn't practical. Nathan leaned forward, genuine interest lighting his eyes. "What kind of art moves you?" For the next 2 hours, they talked about everything from contemporary sculpture to her students' progress. Nathan was an engaged listener, asking thoughtful questions and sharing his own appreciation for the arts. His penthouse, she learned, contained an impressive collection of works by emerging artists. "You have good instincts," she admitted, studying a vibrant abstract painting that dominated one wall. "I research my investments thoroughly," Nathan replied. "Art, like people, reveals its true value over time." Something in his tone made her look at him more closely. "Is that what I am to you? An investment?" Nathan stood and moved to the window, gazing out at the city lights. "You're much more complicated than that, Vivian. You're intelligent, talented, and beautiful. You deserved better than what Trevor gave you." but not love, she said quietly. This arrangement of ours doesn't include that. When Nathan turned back to her, something had shifted in his expression. Doesn't it? I may have married you for practical reasons, but I've been attracted to you since the first time we met. You were discussing art conservation with the gallery director, and your passion was captivating. Heat flooded Vivian's cheeks. You barely spoke to me that night, because you were with Trevor, and I don't poach other men's women. But you're my wife now, and I find myself hoping that our arrangement might become something more genuine. The admission hung between them, charged with possibility and danger. Vivian had gone from heartbreak to marriage to the stirrings of attraction in a single day. It was too much, too fast, too overwhelming. I need time, she said softly. Today has been overwhelming, Nathan finished. I understand. Take all the time you need. But Vivian, I want you to know that whatever happens between us will be your choice. I may have rescued you today, but I won't try to control your future. As she prepared for bed in his luxurious guest suite, Vivian couldn't stop replaying the day's extraordinary events. She had woken up as Trevor's fiancée and was going to sleep as Nathan Brooks' wife. The man who had saved her from public humiliation was proving to be far more complex and appealing than she had ever imagined. Through the walls, she could hear Nathan moving around his own room, and she found herself wondering what it would be like to share more than just a marriage certificate with him. The thought both thrilled and terrified her, because for the first time since Trevor's abandonment, she felt the stirrings of hope that maybe, just maybe, her disaster of a wedding day had led her exactly where she was meant to be. 3 months into their unusual marriage, Vivian had settled into a routine that felt surprisingly natural. Nathan left early for his office, always ensuring fresh coffee and pastries were waiting for her. She spent her days teaching art classes and working on her own paintings in the studio he had converted for her from his spare office. Evenings often found them sharing dinner and conversation, their initial awkwardness replaced by genuine friendship and growing attraction. The chemistry between them was undeniable. Nathan's casual touches, a hand on her back as he passed, fingers brushing when he handed her a glass of wine, the way he looked at her when he thought she wasn't watching sent electricity through her body. But he never pushed, never presumed. Always the perfect gentleman despite the desire she sometimes glimpsed in his blue eyes. Everything changed on a rainy Thursday evening when Trevor appeared at their penthouse door. Vivian, babe, I need to talk to you, he said, pushing past Nathan into the living room. He looked haggard, his usually perfect hair disheveled, his expensive suit wrinkled. I made a terrible mistake. The Chicago deal fell through, and I realized what I'd lost. I want you back. Vivian stared at the man she had once planned to spend her life with, waiting for the familiar flutter of her heart, the rush of love she used to feel. Instead, she felt only a distant pity and slight annoyance at his presumption. Trevor, we need to talk privately, she said, glancing at Nathan, who had gone very still and dangerous looking. No, Nathan said quietly. Whatever you have to say to my wife, you can say in front of me. Your wife? Trevor laughed harshly. This whole marriage is fake, isn't it? Some kind of business arrangement. Vivian isn't the type to fall in love with someone else in 3 months. You're right, Vivian said calmly. I didn't fall in love with Nathan in 3 months. Both men looked at her in surprise, Nathan's expression carefully controlled, while Trevor's showed smug satisfaction. I fell in love with him in 3 weeks, Vivian continued, her voice gaining strength as she realized the truth of her own words. He's shown me more consideration, respect, and genuine affection in our short marriage than you did in 3 years together. Nathan's eyes widened, hope and disbelief warring in his expression. Trevor's face flushed red with anger and humiliation. He's using you, Vivian, Trevor snarled. Rich men like Nathan Brooks don't marry art teachers from community colleges unless they want something. You're right again, Nathan said, stepping closer to Vivian. I wanted something from her. I wanted her intelligence, her passion, her beautiful smile when she talks about art. I wanted her kindness to strangers and her fierce loyalty to friends. I wanted the way she makes me laugh and the way she challenges my assumptions. Most of all, I wanted the privilege of loving her for the rest of my life. Vivian's heart soared at his words, at the raw honesty in his voice. This was no longer about their practical arrangement. This was real. "Trevor, you need to leave," she said firmly. "Our marriage is over. It was over the moment you chose to run instead of fight for us. You'll regret this," Trevor said venomously. "When his novelty wears off, you'll realize you threw away real love for some rich man's fantasy." "The only fantasy here," Nathan said, his voice deadly quiet, "is your delusion that Vivian could ever love someone so selfish and cowardly. She deserves better than you ever gave her, and I intend to spend my life proving I'm worthy of her." After Trevor left, slamming the door behind him, Nathan and Vivian stood facing each other in the sudden silence. Rain continued to patter against the windows, and the city lights blurred through the glass like watercolors. "Did you mean what you said?" Nathan asked softly. "About falling in love with me?" Instead of answering with words, Vivian closed the distance between them, rising on her toes to kiss him with all the passion she had been holding back for months. Nathan's arms came around her immediately, pulling her against his strong chest as he kissed her back with desperate hunger. "I love you," she whispered against his lips. "I love your intelligence and your integrity. I love how you rescued me when I needed it most. And I love how you've given me space to choose my own path. I love that you see me as an equal partner, not an accessory to your life." "Vivian," Nathan breathed, his hands framing her face with reverent tenderness. "I've loved you since that first night at the gallery, but I never imagined you could love me back. You've transformed everything about my life, made it richer and more meaningful than I ever thought possible." They made love for the first time that night, their passion intensified by months of restrained attraction and the joy of finally expressing their true feelings. Nathan worshipped her body with patient devotion, showing her pleasures she had never experienced before. When she cried out his name in ecstasy, he held her close and whispered promises of forever against her skin. 6 months later, they renewed their vows in the same cathedral where their unusual journey had begun, surrounded by family and friends who had witnessed their love story unfold. This time, Vivian wore a new dress she had chosen herself, and when Nathan promised to love and honor her, everyone present could see the truth shining in both their faces. "Do you ever regret how we met?" Nathan asked as they danced at their second reception, this one a celebration of authentic love rather than desperate convenience. "Never," Vivian replied, gazing up at the man who had become her husband in every sense of the word. "Getting left at the altar was the best thing that ever happened to me, because it brought me to you." As Nathan spun her around the dance floor, Vivian marveled at how dramatically her life had changed. From heartbreak and humiliation had come the greatest love she had ever known. Sometimes, she reflected, life's worst moments were actually doorways to something infinitely better. Their gallery opened the following spring, partnership that combined Nathan's business acumen with Vivian's artistic vision. Cross Brooks Contemporary became known for discovering and nurturing emerging talent, giving voice to artists who might otherwise go unnoticed. But their greatest collaboration was their love itself, a marriage that had begun as a desperate solution to an impossible situation and blossomed into a partnership of equals, built on respect, passion, and genuine affection. Nathan had indeed rescued Vivian from her altar disaster, but in loving her, he had rescued himself from a lonely, emotionally barren existence. As they stood together at the opening night of their gallery, watching young artists celebrate their first sales and recognition, Vivian squeezed Nathan's hand and smiled up at him with all the love in her heart. "Thank you," she whispered, "for being exactly what I needed when I needed it most." "Thank you," Nathan replied, bringing her hand to his lips, "for teaching me that the best investments are always matters of the heart." Their love story had begun with tears at an altar, but it would continue with joy, laughter, and the profound satisfaction of two souls who had found their perfect match in the most unexpected way possible.